Well, hello, world. We're welcoming in all of our audiences up here in Northwest Indiana to an awesome opportunity to have the governor come to GreatNews.Life to come to the Good News Cabin. And we last sat down a couple years ago. Saw you actually earlier this week at the South Shore Rail Project. You know, I welcome you here. Thanks for coming by. I think you got a couple things going on right now, so I'm glad you made the time to stop with us. But the first question I guess I want to ask you is, every leader, from a small business person like myself to a governor, city leader, any department manager, store, whatever it is, every leader of every kind, in the last year has taken a gut punch from COVID. And to me, I love to study leadership, and I love to study people and learn every single thing I can from them. And to me, it's been like a real world MBA. How can I watch what every single person is doing and learn from them? Every one of us is going to make stupid decisions. Every one of us is going to make great decisions. And how do you just watch all the smart ones and learn from all the dumb ones and just do that again tomorrow? So to me, I guess I'd ask you, what are the lessons that you've learned through this period of time that none of us had a playbook for?
Yeah. Well, it's good to be back. Don't want to leave. I feel like being part of the great news here is nourishing in and of itself. And especially during a time like this. And I know this will pass ultimately, and we're all going to get through this, and we're making progress every day. That's not just the eternal optimist in me. I just see signs along the way that give me comfort, and that's including all of the gut punches that we've taken and the heartache and the loss. But it's also pretty inspiring to live during a time like this in a state like Indiana. I'm a little biased, but where it's really in our DNA, who we are, to not just promote Hoosier hospitality, but to actually live it and help and love thy neighbor. And so there's good news all around us. We need to, I always say we have a great story to tell, and we need to tell it. And what I'm reminded of during all this, and what I'm really thankful for, is just having a great team and having that team assembled before something like COVID-19 washed upon our shores. We always had challenges, and we always were out trying to do big things. You mentioned one with the Westlake corridor expansion. But COVID-19 kind of came out of left field, and people, we didn't have much time before we saw it really start taking off in Indiana and America and other places around the world. So I think, don't wait to assemble a dream team after the fact.
Until you need a dream team.
Exactly.
You need a dream team right now.
That's exactly right.
All the time.
And we're each feeding off of each other's strengths. And there's some common denominators with every single person. And I think, when we first started putting together the administration, I kind of jokingly said, well, there's really just 3 boxes that we need to check. Folks need to be honest.
Yeah.
They need to be humble, and they need to be hungry. And
you actually touched on those the last time we spoke.
And I meant it, right? And it, boy, does that turn out to be true, and what was really needed, because these are all folks who are experts in their fields and their areas of the backgrounds, and but then when they started to see each other, that also was infectious in a good way. They all wanted to be part of something special, of people who had the head and the heart for this type of service. And so if anything,
then they buy into that team. They're not just buying into you.
Chemistry.
They're buying into every single one of those other people. Like, I like him because he likes that guy, and that guy likes this guy, and this guy likes, and they want to help those other people be successful
every day. And it's the team chemistry that you can't just go to a store and pull it off the shelf. It happens, and it's and
it actually takes every single day to nurture it.
That's right.
And every single day it will attrit if you let it.
Yep.
And so it's like, but it's the only thing all the time forever.
And probably the toughest times reveal not just character, but when we go through things together and you're there for one another, that really is a bond. And I've often kind of described going through this past year, 8+ months, as Hoosiers have got to see not just the governor, but they've gone to Oz, they've looked behind the curtain, and they've seen that Chris or Eric or Chris Box, Dr. Box,
Yeah.
or Fred Payne at DWD, we're Hoosiers. We all come, born and raised in Claremont, Indiana, and it's not some wizard back there that's,
real people.
They're just real people with real experience and real life, world experience, and all came together, all remaining very calm during it all, and just getting it done day after day after day, always trying to take, again, it's not rhetorical, always trying to take what we do to the next level. And I recall I was driving over here today. I recall this conversation I had with, I always think the Brits have a sense of humor. And we were in England and talking to Sir Alan Duncan, of all people. And in his British accent, I was bragging about Indiana and all the things that were going good.
We got it going on.
Yeah. The momentum and where we're going. And he said, Eric, you know what the true definition of an optimist is? And he said, an optimist is a poorly informed pessimist, which was so cynical. And I got his humor, and he laughed, and I said, well, I'm just not that cynical. And here's why. And we went through this, and he was just kind of jousting or joking. And but we have so much good news. And again, we got to share that. We can't just take that for granted or hold it to ourselves, because it inspires other people to step forward and do big things as well. Even when they don't have much to give, they give.
And to me, that's where I think stories from our standpoint come out of the woodwork. I mean, we've never produced more content. We've never had more things to tell the story about, because this group is helping those people. These people are stepping forward. These people are appreciating those people that step forward. These people are helping. It's infectious. Yeah. And I think I'm a markets guy originally, and markets are built on momentum. If there's a momentum that's going negative, it's going to go pear-shaped pretty darn fast until something dramatically changes. If it's going to go positive, it's going to get fed by that. And I'm a big believer that you feed that in your organization. What do you feed? I think you feed calm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, for anybody that knows me, I don't feed calm. I feel optimism and energy, but I don't feed calm. Right. And I think you feed through your team calm. And when I'm watching you and Dr. Box and the other people on those live streams that you're doing a zillion times, you're basically just saying, I'm going to give you the information. I'm going to give you the facts. I'm going to communicate this all to you. Yep. And the next expert. And that's right. It's not, it really is a combined effort.
Yeah, it's a team, and it's we're calm because we're very comfortable sharing, being very transparent about what we know. We're not trying to hold anything back. We trust people. And by the way, we rely on people to make good decisions. They can't necessarily make them if they don't have the access to the same information that we do, that we're charged to share. And so, yes, we're going to share the good news. And again, by the way, there's so many examples of people who step forward. Sharing those, I get calls all the time that say, hey, can you connect me with so-and-so that you talked about at 2:30?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in Petersburg, Indiana, they're doing something that happened in Valparaiso, or vice versa. Yep. It's pretty cool to be part of something that special and big.
Well, and to understand the importance of emphasizing that it doesn't minimize the challenges that anybody is going through whatsoever, but it does give you an opportunity to maybe have those challenges not overwhelm you.
Yeah, and we all need hope, and I want to convert that hope to opportunity. And no matter what the challenge is, before we get there, folks to understand that there are people available who want to help you overcome.
A couple days ago, I had the opportunity to spend the morning with you as you did the groundbreaking for the Westlake Extension. To say, for anybody that is aware of that, to say that that's like a defining moment, knowing how many people have been involved for how many years to make that happen, how many parties that had to get involved across counties and state and personalities, and there's just a whole lot of stuff that had to come together. I've been here 13 years in the region. I come from a region of Chicago that everybody sort of expected the train to be a commuter rail, like
Sure.
boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
I've always thought, doesn't make a lot of sense that Northwest Indiana doesn't have one of those. We have one, but it's not like bam, bam, bam. And so to me, from an outsider, I was like, this is sort of crazy. Like,
no brainer.
All of these people over here wouldn't really want to move here because that's not here.
Yep.
But if they moved here, if the taxes are low, the education's great, the quality of living is awesome, the values are great, the state has got a rainy day fund, they're not in a complete disaster like Illinois is. Like, it'd be crazy for people to not move here.
Right.
That raises everybody's assessments, that raises the standard of living, it raises amenities, and it sustains the region. And to me, the common theme at that event and every other thing related to that was that unity, that how do you get Northwest Indiana? How do you get all these different counties working together? How did that happen? We don't, and I count us as we now because I'm in the region, but we're not known for getting along. So why did that work as well as it did?
Well, this is, I don't want to take credit for this because, as you allude to or articulate, a lot of people have been working on this for decades, and it is a no-brainer. And so when I got elected and started looking at what are their priorities, this just seemed like we have to get this done. So what's it going to take? And it took consensus building, and it took getting folks on the same page. It took a lot of who cares who gets credit for this? Let's just get it done. It I think took sharing that this is our moment where all the stars can align, whether it be local, state, federal. It took leadership for sure, saying this is a number one priority for me. It took, I think, an approach. We take the approach of building one Indiana for all. And if double tracking the South Shore Line or expanding the Westlake Corridor is good for the region or the northwest quadrant of our state, by the way, that is good for the rest of the state as well, because we're clearly, all in this thing together. And so we want Jefferson. I'm rooting for Jeffersonville when I'm in Gary, and I'm rooting for Gary when I'm in Jeffersonville, and couldn't be further apart and still in the same state. But to see the northwest quadrant of our state and to see Jeffersonville, the River Ridge area, just booming as well, these areas have been, they have become magnetic. And in what you just said, in terms of drawing talent and residences, and for sure businesses, we talked a little bit about the potential and going to be realized economic development, but it's also bringing people, which we need just as much as we need the jobs. And by the way, when they do come and when they share their personal stories with me, it's almost like they have this Einstein moment of the relevancy of space and time. They get back time in their lives, which means they get to spend it with their family, or they have more space to enjoy with their family, or their dollar goes further on this side of the border than the other. And so it's very important that we continue to prioritize, our location.
Yeah.
And that means investing in our infrastructure like rail. And so when you can get from, Wheaton or Naperville to the city, or you can get from Valparaiso to the city in the same time, or Michigan City to the city in the same time, we win. And because of look around.
By a large margin.
Yeah.
It's not just you win. It's
Yeah.
the finances of the state aren't good. The regulations of the state aren't good. The business climate of the state isn't good. The tax base of the state, like everything's not good.
Yeah.
And it's better over here. But and I know this will moderate some related to COVID, but ultimately there's going to be a post-COVID day.
That's right.
And people will go to cities again, and people will travel to conferences, it's not like we're going to be in this forever.
That's right.
It feels like forever,
Yeah.
but we're not going to be in this forever. And I think being connected to a Chicago market, it's just.
And you know, the other thing beyond the physical investments, that day to me, and I've had a few others, but that day to me, the Hoosier psyche, the understanding that we can and we will, to your point about we'll be on the other side of COVID, we can and we will do big things. We have talked about this for decades. We have talked about completing in Southwest Indiana I-69 since the Korean conflict. We're actually going to finish it. And people tear up when they think we're on Section 6 of I-69. People teared up when they not are just envisioning how nice it would be to double track, not single track for a century. Tear up when they understand this is going to happen. It is happening. And that's something that shows we can do big things here, and we can do big things together. And maybe it's a prerequisite that we do that big things together. And I think that speaks globally, and not just in Indiana, but certainly, you know, from coast to coast. But it's probably touching on something bigger than just one nation. And that project to me proved that we can do big things, and that will lead to the next big thing.
You know, from my standpoint, watching it, I see it as a defining moment. It's when Indy and Northwest Indiana said, no, let's actually work on stuff together.
Yep.
And you got a powerhouse economy here.
Yes.
You got a really strong potential here. And then you got a magnet there in Chicago.
Yep. There's some synergy here.
Yeah.
And that synergy, you know, can take you places.
Well, and I think that it's not an either or. It's not like everything from Illinois is terrible. It's not everything from Indiana is perfect. But you go to the standard residential community in Illinois, they've got great parks, they got great schools, they got great pools, a lot of outdoor amenities. There's a lot of things Illinois has done well developing the suburbs. You don't have to take all of them, but you take many of them. And growing up by the Arlington Heights or Palatine or Barrington or Naperville or Downers Grove or whatever it is stop on that train, life was built around the train station. And that's where commerce developed. That's where real estate was developed. That's where a lot of activity happened. And I remember being in Naperville where you had one train stop downtown where they built one out on Route 59. Mm-hmm. Everybody said, oh my God, this is the craziest thing in the world. You're going to kill downtown by developing out there. There's going to be no development whatsoever. That is a giant hub of activity. And Naperville downtown has like exploded, and it's dramatically, better off for it. So,
you bring up a point, and I won't drone on and on about this, but you'll get some more good news here in the weeks ahead. I was talking to a company that will locate in Indiana out of Chicago. And the CEO said, a couple things I just wanted to highlight after we completed the deal. He said, a couple things I wanted to highlight. One is you never misled us. Not one time. You never exaggerated. We never got a different answer after we started getting down the line.
Yep.
You all were aligned with the local community. So we were working harmoniously with the state and the local area. And he said, the other thing that was very important to me is that you never badmouthed Chicago.
Yeah.
You compared and contrasted yourselves and all that you had to offer. But he said, I'm from Chicago. I'm very proud of Chicago.
Yeah.
But you never badmouthed them. And so, that was very attractive to us. You were very welcoming, and you said, and by the way, I root for Chicago and I root for Illinois. To your point, we want that synergy. That's exactly right.
It's so awesome to be by Chicago.
Yep.
You know what? If we want to travel, we're in Northwest Indiana, we want to fly somewhere.
There you go.
Because of Chicago, we can fly anywhere we want
in the world.
Cheap. Really easy, direct flights everywhere. So do I not like Chicago? No, I love Chicago.
Absolutely.
You want to go watch a game, you want to go on the lakefront, you want to go eat, there's a million things I love about
and
Chicago.
The Colts beat the Bears this year, so I'm really happy.
I
won't ask you.
Yeah, I have nothing to say to refute that. I think it needs more than a quarterback. I think it needs a coach. And long story short, Communication in a digital age. I know what it's like to get a lot of messaging out about this corner of the world on tweets and Facebook posts and live streams and whatever that is. You're doing that nonstop. As an administration, I would say you jumped in with both feet, and every platform, you're communicating all the time. You're doing live streams. You're asking questions. You're answering questions that I definitely probably would punch myself in the face if I had to listen to those questions every single day. You stay calm. You communicate nonstop. How do you do it?
Well, I know
Why do you do it? How do you do it?
How do I do it? I know my wife and my mother are watching, and they'll correct me if I slip. But no, seriously, I think how and why in a word comes down to mission, and we remain very mission focused and very people purposed. And that's why we do it too, by the way. I mean, everything we do is and I know I almost have, a shot clock or a egg timer going off in the back of my brain, and it's counting down. And so you only have so much time to try to do good. And there are very few positions in government that are, like a governor or a cabinet has, where everything you do has the potential of doing great good. And that's a responsibility that everyone on this team takes very seriously. And so to focus on the mission, that far outweighs any of the, potential negative, any pettiness or any gotcha moments.
You've had someone make a negative comment?
Well, there are people that are skeptical. Yeah, let's just say there are people that aren't in agreement. And I get that because, again, this is, and by the way, I've worked for some pretty tough folks, or, had a coach who I adore and revere and love, who was a taskmaster or was in the military and had a drill sergeant.
I would have to believe Governor Daniels was not a teddy bear.
He was warm and fuzzy, but someone that I looked up to.
Yeah.
And
commanded your respect because he was all in on every single thing he was going to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you couldn't be a slouch.
Yeah.
And you had to be in it for the right reason. And it was not about you. It's about what you're doing here.
Yeah.
And
I think there was an understanding that if you were on the starting team, like you have a very significant role.
That's right.
But like you have to fill that role every minute of every game.
That's exactly right. Role was so important. And honestly, not to bring this back to me, but this administration has the best cabinet I've ever seen because of the team chemistry. And so, we're building every year on a foundation that was laid years ago, but we just keep building that foundation. And hopefully, when I'm done, someone else is going to come along and they're going to take what we've done and they're going to take it and shatter whatever so-called record or winning percentage that we had.
That's impressive. When you think about good news, we touched on it at the beginning. There's probably 1,000 stories. And by the way, we do have this here. We are 6 feet apart. So if anybody's got any questions about it, we have been masked outside of this. We've been totally protected.
Not yelling at each other.
Not yelling at each other. As I close it, what are those good news stories? Like, where have you been impressed? Not maybe by the magnitude, but by the significance of individual gestures.
Yeah, that's probably the other source of fuel, outside of the good book and the family, is seeing individuals and church groups and doctors and nurses and assistants who often get forgotten, and small business owners completely changing their whole line of products to not just accommodate the need or meet the need, but to over deliver. And so when you get, church lady groups in churches that are stitching masks at the very outset and still doing that to meet the need, because this is so important. And when you get folks who say, I'm going to start making hand sanitizer, or I'm going to make gowns, or I'm going to make, and then when you're able to see folks learn a trade, maybe they're incarcerated right now, and we say, well, there's a whole nother market out there for gowns and gloves and masks, and so now we're teaching, tailoring, and ultimately then they're going to be able to, when they pay their debt to society, they're going to be able to go work for an RV industry, and they're already getting credentials and certificates from, a business, or Ivy Tech, or Vincent University, or they could go work for one of our auto OEMs or trucking companies, and they're in high demand. And so when you get to see, our recidivism rate went down 4%, because we're training people so that when they get out, they're already hired, and they have more than hope. They have a skill set and a lot of dignity that goes with it. And so I'm seeing those. That's one of the real, again, sources of nourishment for me, is I get to see folks say, how can we help on a grand scale? Yes, it's to get through COVID-19, and they can see the other side of this.
Yeah.
And they know that we're going to be.
But you see heroes in 200 communities. I look at them in 30 or 40. You're looking at hundreds of communities where people are, that lady's a rock star.
Yes.
That guy is like, what a hero.
And there are people who, we expect a lot from folks who have been given a lot, and they're stepping forward. And we're also seeing people who, again, don't have much, who are given a lot, whether they're leading them to help, whether they're, collecting T-shirts that they haven't worn in years and making masks and then giving them to the folks who are in need, whether or students in high school or junior high using 3D printers to make face shields and then delivering them to the local hospital. I mean, it's inspiring. And so it's every age, or kids that are, in high school that are writing inspirational songs and sharing them. And then going down to not Nashville, Indiana, but the Little Opry, but the Big Opry down in Nashville, Tennessee, and playing these songs that they wrote on Hoosier soil. It's pretty.
Okay, I want to interview her. Jenny actually,
I will
show
connect
wants
you.
to interview that person.
I will connect you. I'll make that happen, and you, I think, will be inspired.
That kind of stuff, to me, it feeds my soul. But
Yep.
also, we did Jenny did an interview a couple weeks ago with Michelle Gilon, who wrote a book called Happiness, Pursuing Happiness, Happiness something. Long story short, she's a past news journalist, a network news journalist that realized how the negativity of what people are consuming impacts them, and how positivity can potentially impact them. And to me, when you hear that story, we recently did one of a young guy at a local grocery store in Indiana. That lady came up. She had misjudged whatever she had. She wasn't going to have enough, so she was deciding what to put back. This kid pulls out of his pocket and gives the lady the money. And you're thinking, I wouldn't have done that when I was 17.
That's exactly right.
That's like a hero. Like, maybe I would have done it, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
And that guy's a stud.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, man, that guy should be at the front page of the paper every
That's
day.
right.
He ought to be the first story on the news. He ought to be what we're all talking about, because all those other bad things are going to happen, and we got to deal with them.
That's right.
But unless you take your vitamin every morning, or unless you ingest some good stuff, you're not going to feel that great.
You could literally put on the front page of the newspaper a different woman or man serving in the Indiana National Guard today and tell their story and what they're doing today outside of their job and family. And they've been tasked, they've been sent all over the world to help, but now they're being tasked like never before, not addressing a flood or a tornado that can be devastating, but they're more temporary. This is month after month after month after month after month. So imagine that service woman or man, you know, always thinking, okay, I'm going to get called up to now go work in a nursing home, to now go deliver PPE, to now go work at elections, to now go work. I mean, they're being stretched and, you know, on a daily basis answering the call. And you literally, I love the way you put that. You literally could put their story on the front page. That might be another interesting one to interview, just someone who's serving in the Guard here in the region or in Valparaiso, and just hear them talk about their experience, because it's been unprecedented, and they surpassed everything we've asked from them.
And to me, that's pretty motivating. It doesn't necessarily make any of the challenges
Yeah.
everybody's gone through any easier.
That's right.
But it definitely says, no, like we could do this, but it's got to be together.
Yep. In it together.
Well, thank you very much for all the updates. I appreciate you coming back here, and I look forward to just continuing to tell those stories. We'll follow up on a couple of them, and we like the good news tips. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good to be back with you.